Initially, I had no idea how to make a garment. I'm self-taught, so it's all been a learning curve. Trial and error is my creative process, I would say. Maybe a little less so, as I've been doing it for about 10 years, but I would say that I don't have something in mind when I start out. I may have a general idea of what I want to do, but I have to be open to the creative process and where that's going to take me. What kind of rabbit hole I may go down. And the end result is something that I never thought that it would end up as. I have an interesting story on how I grew up. I was raised by hippies, and we were living on the Sunshine Coast. We squatted in old homesteads. It was the 70s, and it was a very free time. So I didn't wear clothes until I was probably 8. I was naked with gumboots most of my childhood. And just being in nature, I loved being outside. So I grew up very, very attuned to nature. It stayed with me. I was living in Victoria. My mom had moved away and I wanted to stay in Victoria, so I was going to high school and trying to support myself and really not seeing how algebra was applicable to real life. I'd met some guys and they were tree planters, and it sounded like this crazy, hard, awesome job. And I'm like, wow, I got to do that. So I quit high school and got in a van with these guys and drove up to Quesnel with 20 bucks in my pocket. Got a job planting trees, and I hated it. And I learned to love it, but it was the hardest work I'd ever done. That was the beginning of my career. And then just continued on with it and became a silviculture surveyor. And I really got into it. Counting trees and going into very remote areas, all through the Rocky Mountains and the mid-coast of BC, like wild, wild places. I loved the logistics and the challenge, but I really loved also just being in the wild. My career was almost 20 years in forestry, and when I was pregnant with my second baby, sort of had a midlife crisis and just started sewing. It seemed natural. When you start down the road, you never know where that road's going to take you. I basically locked myself in my basement for about 3 months straight, working 14, 16 hours a day, and just immersed in this world of trying to understand how to design things. But there was something there that was deep down. I had a knowing, an instinctual knowing, and I never knew really where that came from. It was just there. But also there might be some real ability there from generations of seamstresses before me. My grandmother and great-grandmother all were seamstresses, and my mother was a seamstress. Sometimes I feel that there are ancestors with us. It's sort of a First Nations belief. And I sometimes feel that when I'm designing, I feel like there's an audience, if you will. I feel supported and they're really proud of what I'm doing and what I've done with it. The way that I come at fashion and how I look at designing is my own perspective. It's very unique and it's original. My patterns are made with paper and scissors and masking tape, and I am a very tangible person. I need hands-on, I need to design in scale. The idea of designing on a computer screen, using a little picture and a mouse, is, to me, I can't relate to that. I need something that's in front of me and I can touch it and feel it and manipulate it. And that, I think, is one of my strengths.
I think I met Jeni probably over 10 years ago, and she was a customer making some clothing while she was having a young family. We really got to be good friends because she has a really wonderful ethos about life and about sustainability like we did. And it's been a real pleasure watching her grow and watch her company grow.
Oh, it just came in?
Yeah, we've got the fleece to carry the jerseys
in
now.
Lovely.
So that's like the
Yeah.
jersey there.
Oh, it's so beautiful. When I started designing, I studied the human body, the anatomy, muscle groups, how things moved, looked at thermal imaging, where hot spots were, cold spots were, and then started to learn about the attributes of various types of fabrics. Merino wool and its ability to regulate temperature, hemp for its ability to insulate, modal for its ability to breathe, and then strategically using these fabrics where they would best be utilized for their natural abilities.
Watching that evolution, doing things that I never thought people would do with our fabrics, like combining hemps with soft shell materials, with water repellent materials, and real lifestyle clothing that still has a sustainable side to it.
It was a natural progression to start to work with eco-fabrics because they are sustainable, meaning that it's not polluting the environment in the growing of them. And they're just the best quality, I find. I care about the environment, so I don't want to be supporting industries that are making it worse. I would like to leave the world a little bit better than when I found it. I mean, why not try to do that in everything you do? It was about creating a brand that was made in Canada and supporting jobs, specifically in BC, and paying people fair wages to make the clothing. So going against the mainstream fashion. Yeah, I've been working with the same factory since I started 10 years ago. Together we've grown, and she's watched me grow, and I've watched her expand her business as well. I know all her workers. There's about 15 of these lovely ladies, and I enjoy going over there and visiting. I love that it's made locally, and we can do small productions that are good quality. My intention is to keep jobs in Canada and have it be sustainable. And I think people are willing to support that.
Yeah, it's really, really good customer. I love her.
Yes,
so many.
So much.
Yeah.
I met Jeni about 4 years ago. We both are volunteer search and rescue members, and so we met on a rope rescue course, and we just hit it off. Search and rescue is a bit of an intense environment, and so you make bonds with people pretty quickly.
So with search and rescue, there is the main GSAR aspect of it, and our group takes in new recruits every year. I'm been tasked to lead the instruction of the new members. So when we get a new batch, they get my smiling face to greet them and other trainers that work with me to train them, and it's awesome. I love it because I get to teach skills that I developed by working in the bush for all those years. So with search and rescue, there's specialty teams. There's tracking and rope rescue and swift water. And I specialize in two of those, which is rope rescue. I love doing that. My happy place is rappelling off of a cliff, you know, picking a subject off that's sort of stuck on the side of a cliff. It's so fun, and I wish I could do it more, but too little people fall off cliffs, so. I wish more people would fall off cliffs. I know that sounds terrible, but if I had more call-outs, I would be a happy camper. The other aspect is man tracking, so that is a whole other specialty field, and it takes a long time to get good at that.
The heel appears to start right in about this area here.
Patience and perseverance. We read the sign on the ground that's left by a person or an object that moves across the earth. She has to delineate between false sign and what is actually part of the actual. And it is a learned skill. It's something that you practice and practice and practice again. Jeni worked very, very hard, and last year she earned her sign cutter certificate. Sign cutter is probably the most senior level that you're going to get in the discipline of tracking. She is definitely one of the best. We get along well together. There's no subject that we haven't plowed over on our trips, and we've spent many thousands of miles in that pickup truck. In a word, she's my non-biological daughter. I mean, what can you say? She's one of a kind.
And I remember being in Bella Coola in King Island, this remote camp, and I had crazy dreams in this place. I had this dream about this beautiful female grizzly bear, and this old native man in the dream had this wolf headdress and all these bones and hanging off of him, and he grabbed my hands and he said, "Find your element." And then it flashed to this beautiful grizzly bear, and I remember waking up that morning going, what is my element? What does this all mean? And the first thing I did when I got out to the woods was I'm walking down the road, and there's this grizzly skull sitting there waiting for me. It's a skull of a female, sort of middle-aged grizzly bear. And the skull was just right there, and I've had so many experiences that are almost bordering on supernatural in the woods. The native man that came to me to say, find your element, he wasn't the first time that I had had him in my dreams. I had had him in my dreams many times, and I called him grandfather. And when I was really, really scared in the woods and I was afraid for my life, I would just say a prayer in my head to grandfather to just give me the strength to not be afraid. I do believe there are ancestors all around us, and they're not necessarily our ancestors, but they are ancestors, and their connection with the land is so strong. So whenever I'm outside or in the woods or I'm by myself or I'm afraid, I know that I'm not alone. And that gives me so much hope and confidence, and that gives me the courage to strive forward. I'm inspired by the women who love and wear my clothes. That's who I'm thinking about when I'm designing these, is how the clothing makes them feel.
Jeni's clothes are really comfortable. I think they're really great quality. Everything I've had has lasted a really long time.
It's perfect clothing for the West Coast. He includes technical details, like I'm wearing one of her pieces right now, so it's got like a waterproofing on the hood, and she just really pays attention to ergonomic fitting.
Being a plus size person, there's not very often that you can find something that goes up to your size regardless. So when I put her sweaters on, I find that I feel beautiful and I feel like the size 0 that's also wearing it. It's nice to have something that's made for every woman.
They're very flattering on women, the way they fit women's bodies, and they're warm and cozy.
The waistband's always in the right place, and the pockets are always in the right place, and where the seams are all in the right spot.
Even though Jeni designs for both men and women, there's this femininity that is, at least I feel like in the clothes, I feel very much a woman when I put something on of hers.
She just thinks of all the little comfort details. She does here we've got some merino wool keeping my wrists warm because it wicks moisture, and when you're wearing a raincoat your wrists might slip out, and that's where you lose heat in your body, so it keeps you warm.
I like wearing the hoodies when I'm camping. It's really comfortable and the fabric is really soft and it's really warm.
The clothing that I make, I put love into it. I pour everything into it.
When pieces are created from the heart, people see and feel that, and then they feel that vibe when they wear it.
She has this comfort about her, and I think that that's what transfers over to her clothes so well. It's like Jeni's giving you a hug when you put her sweaters on. It feels great.
Anything that she puts her mind to, she's so dedicated, and it's only going to be beautiful and wonderful.
People feel the connection to the West Coast because that's who she is.
I mean, that's where it came from. I live that life, and I'm an island girl, and it's based on who I am as a person and all the adventures I've had on the West Coast. And my clothing does not follow any trends at all. In fact, the hoodie that started it all, a cowl neck hoodie, is still being manufactured to this day. And there's people that have been wearing these hoodies for 10 years and loving them. And there's people that are just discovering them today and loving them. Working in the forest industry, I was just out there doing what I love to do. But it gave me the strength and the character to be a strong woman and to make courageous decisions in my life as a woman. And so part of that brand is sort of exporting that empowerment towards other women. I'd like to create an experience for women when they go into the store and they try clothes on, that they feel amazing and they look good and they're empowered. To me, it's not just about the brand, it's about community and building that. The idea behind the store was not just the retail location, but it was also going to be a hub of sorts, a hub for the community of people that enjoy the outdoors, personal health and growth, and however we can facilitate that happening by supporting people in the community who teach yoga, who teach holistic nutrition, self-care, anything like that. We are going to support that 100% and give those people an opportunity to share their skills with our community.
The store is such a great location for us to connect people. Retail is all about getting to know people and getting to know their stories. And I see the brand, and I think I'd really love to bring speakers in and have events at the store that will really highlight being inspired by nature and enjoying it and appreciating it. Coming to a place where I can do that, have those conversations with people, is really exciting. I'm so grateful to have a place where I feel like I can really kind of help build a community.
When you start down the road, you never know where that road's going to take you. And I had no idea when I started of how far it would go 10, 11 years later. Life is a mystery. You can't resist it changing direction. It just flows that way. And you just have to adapt and go with wherever it's gonna go. Perseverance, baby, is what it's all about. It's a process, so. If you are impatient in the process, you're not gonna get far. And if you are unable to embrace the unknown, you're never gonna be free. You need to be courageous and keep striving forward, because there's a force of nature that's there to support you in realizing those dreams.